Hi guys, welcome back to the Holistic Hottie, a soul-centered podcast where we tackle raw conversations with intention and authenticity. Today we're diving back into our addiction series where we discuss what addiction is, how it affects the person struggling, and also the people who love them. Today with me I have a very special guest, Jake. We've been friends since middle school and we have a very special bond that I felt he could kind of bring to the table today as we dive into the addiction and what it carries, recovery, how it affects others, how it affects him personally. This episode is intended for educational and personal storytelling purposes only. It does not replace professional or psychological advice, but rather giving compassion, clarity, and removing the shame and stigma as we discuss addiction. If you or anyone you know is struggling and needs immediate help, you can contact the hotline below. Hot heels and high vibe, let's get into it. As we begin this series, the first thing I want to talk about is overindulgence versus addiction. Addiction is marked by compulsion, loss of control, and continued behavior despite negative consequences, whereas overindulgence is often situational and still involves choice and control. And just because someone has an addiction doesn't mean it's purely substance abuse. It could be gambling, sex addiction, food, shopping, the list goes on and on. How can someone tell when a habit has crossed the line of overindulgence into addiction?
Well, the idea is when they're dependent on it, or it starts to affect their daily life.
Right.
And that can show up in many different ways.
Right.
Being late to work, when the people around you start to feel affected by it.
Yeah.
The hard part about that one, though, is a lot of addiction comes with denial.
Yes. Is that like the first stage?
That's like, I think it's hard to track until it is a problem sometimes. Yeah. I think that's like the hard part about it. And dependency. That's the next one.
Yeah.
When someone is like dependent on it.
Right. When you realized that your habits were becoming more of an addictive thing than an overindulgence thing, what different stages did you have to go through to actually like identify that this is not, I just had one too many drinks, like this is an actual problem?
I say it's like there's a blurred line between the two.
Yeah.
Because something that's consistent turns into dependency really quick, and what happens between is kind of like the unknown. It's like an abyss.
Yeah.
You don't really think of it as a problem until it is bad or can feel like a point of no return.
So the addiction just unfolds on its own and then you discover the different layers that comes with it?
It sneaks up on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so, in my experience.
Yeah.
But this topic is important because ultimately I struggle more with overindulgent behavior.
Right.
I've definitely gone on like binges, especially with substance abuse, and it'll get me to a place where it's so bad and I'm like, oh man, I fucked up.
Right.
But then I'll spend like the next week or two like really like hyper focusing on my health or like doing what's right. I never like got to a point where no, that's a lie. Where were we?
When I asked Jake to be a guest on my podcast and share his story of addiction, he was more than willing and wanted to use the podcast as a safe space to talk about the subject, how it affects him personally, how it's also affected him and loved ones that he's witnessed with addiction. And as we get deeper into this episode, I wanted to ask you to briefly share what your addiction is. Was it substance, non-substance, and just a little bit of how you formed that realization that you had an addiction?
Well, I want to clarify that I mainly struggled with overindulgent behavior, just as a preface, because I don't want to invalidate people that struggle with addiction and have for long periods of time.
Right.
I'm very lucky in that way, where it just was overindulgent behavior, and the main difference between the two is it's like I could have gone on a bender for like a week straight,
right,
and then it got me into such a dark rut that I was able to like cut it off,
snap out of it,
and then hyper focus on my health and like overachieving. But it was a lot of that was a roller coaster.
Yeah, up and down, up and down.
Right. So, but I think addiction is when it becomes a dependency.
Yeah.
You can't get out of it.
Yeah, and you're stuck.
It's a disease that attaches itself to you, and I'd say that's the main difference. I did go through a period, I'd say about 6 months of being addicted to cocaine, and that was a dependency.
Yeah.
And I went through alcohol for a summer.
Yeah.
A whole summer. Like I would say full-blown alcoholic, but outside of those time frames, it's always been up and down with me. That's overindulgent for you, you know?
Right.
Like I'll do a whole month of just like constantly drinking or doing any type of drug, and then a month after that, it's like
hot yoga. I'm going to the gym. I'm eating fucking healthy. Reading the 4 agreements.
I'm reading the 4 agreements for the 1400th time. Yeah. So for me, and also I have bipolar disorder, so it's very black or white.
Right.
There's no in between, so that also flares up overindulgent behavior.
Yes.
It also comes with impulsivity. So that's kind of where I fall into this category.
As you mentioned before, you have your overindulgent behavior, and then you had that period where you had the addiction to cocaine. Where did you draw that line?
And the addiction is like, it's a necessity. And I think there's that fine line. It's kind of hard because I feel like addiction does sneak up on people. I feel like it doesn't feel like a problem until it is one.
Right.
And you'll know because it affects your daily life. Distancing yourself from family, friends, like there's a pattern in a behavior you can recognize with it, but right after the pattern comes denial. Sneaks up. So it's hard to recognize in yourself and with somebody else.
So you have to like go through the stages and have them unfold layer by layer for you to fully acknowledge like this is an addiction and this is something that I'm going to need to get help for.
Right. Everybody falls different on the spectrum of being like hyper aware of their actions or delusional.
Right. Yeah.
There's some people who will take it years and like insist that they don't have a problem.
Right.
So we all fall differently on that spectrum, and that can be tedious as well.
Right.
And there's good and bad to both sides. Some people who are hyper aware, they think the problem is worse. You know what I mean? I work at a detox unit. I have teens come in all the time and they say they're full-blown addicts when really they're just having fun and took it a little far. And for that reason, that's why I wanted to clarify the difference, and I'm glad you brought this up, like overindulgence versus addiction, because that's tough. I know a lot of, you know, college people that are like, oh my God, I'm such an alcoholic, and it's like
you're in a frat.
You're in a frat. You don't know what alcoholism is. Like that shit is dark. It ain't funny.
There are many different breakdowns when it comes to addiction and its causes. And also, as Jake mentioned earlier, he also has bipolar disorder. And so when you have a co-occurring mental health disorder, it can also intensify the symptoms when you use the substance as well. That can kind of tie into the addiction. From your experience and then what the research suggests, what factors matter more, environmental, genetics, or accessibility?
I think they all matter, really.
Yeah, they all kind of take a part in it.
They all play a huge part in it. Like I know for environment, when you're around that kind of stuff, it becomes normalized for you. It's become something that you're not really afraid of because you're familiar with it, you've seen it.
Yeah.
I think about this like metaphor all the time. Like if you take a family that like humble beginnings, like Shameless or something, and then you have a family that's really classy, clean, and white picket fence, like those kids from the white picket fence might be a lot more afraid to like dive into getting drunk or, you know, stuff like that. That's how environment plays a huge part into it, is the normalization of it and how you're around that. With trauma, you know, our nervous system holds on to so much pain. Yeah. And when you start experimenting with different substances, you find that some of them can completely eradicate that pain. And that feeling alone can be very addictive. Right. Because it might be the first time in your life where you felt like you were completely emancipated from all of that bullshit. You kind of grow up realizing that trying to achieve that without substance feels like damn near impossible. Right. You know, we all have so many hard times getting into the gym, eating healthy, not trying to protect ourselves from people that don't really fit us, you know? Yeah. So trauma plays a big part into it, and then especially genetics. I mean, it's scientifically proven that addictive behavior can be genetic. It also played a huge factor for me because like I came from the part of the spectrum where substance abuse was normalized, and then I fell in love with people and had friends and family that like the substance abuse was normalized, so I wasn't afraid to, you know, dive into it. Right. but where the genetics kind of fucked with me is that I have a chemical imbalance. My body doesn't do well with things that alter your mind.
Okay.
So some people can down a whole bottle of vodka, they can, pop acid or do all kinds of drugs and it's nothing. They have a great time. But for me, I risk going into a substance-induced psychosis. So I was, doing a handful of drugs as a teen, and like I said, a lot of my friends were able to just do it and have no problem and bounce back. But for me, I was dealing with the repercussions of it affecting my nervous system so much harder than like a neurotypical person. And everybody's body and mind reacts to it differently. And some of that is genetic, some of that is personal experience.
Yeah. Earlier you mentioned too that you had a period where you were addicted to cocaine. What for you was the dependency on the cocaine, and how did you fall into that addiction?
The thing about cocaine is it like brings all the serotonin you have to the forefront of your brain. Mm-hmm. So when you do that, it like I said earlier, it's like the best feeling in the world for, a little bit. But when you're pushing all of that out at once, mm-hmm. you have nothing left when it's over.
Right.
So it's kind of like a roller coaster. You get to go on the high, but there's always a come down. And the higher you get, the lower you come down. Mm-hmm. And if it's consistent to the point, you lose all feeling and color and vibrance in your life.
Yeah.
And the only way you can get that back is
the cocaine.
Getting high again. Mm-hmm. And every time you do it, it gets more and more watered down. You'll end up chasing a high for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Being an addict often involves shame, secrecy, emotional disconnection. We see our loved ones act out of character, develop new patterns, and morph into someone we can no longer recognize over time. What is life like through those lenses? Like that period of time where you were addicted to cocaine for 6 months, what was life like on the good end of the euphoric feeling? Mm-hmm. And then what was it like when you had the come downs?
When you get to that high, like I was surrounded by friends, I lived with friends, and we had a great life. I mean, it was like that coming of age film that was like so breathtaking and like cinematic. It was like an episode of Euphoria.
Right.
But it got to a point where without that high, without the help of that little crutch, mm-hmm. it just became really dark really fast. It was, you were experiencing two very different worlds. It mm-hmm. was like a dimension where it felt like heaven, but when you weren't high, the dimension that was reality became darker and darker and darker.
Yeah.
I think that was the hardest part, and I really didn't know there was an issue until family began to feel like strangers and strangers felt like family. I had started to trust so many unfamiliar faces because that's what I was surrounded with. That's where you can get drugs. That's, mm-hmm. The people who aren't concerned with you using them.
Yeah, because they don't give two fucks about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when your family starts to get concerned, that is a strange feeling. It's scary, and you want to back away from it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is, it ties into my next question too. When you are loving someone with an addiction, the person who's addicted, it feels like you're nagging and you're just harping on them, and that's what makes them, push away and stuff. So as someone who dealt with substance abuse, did it feel like that nagging and that complaining that drove you away, or were you able to see that these people care about you, but you just didn't give two fucks?
Because when people care about you, it can be a bit intimidating and terrifying, mm-hmm. and also you can downplay their concerns because it just feels like a moment. Like, we all have bad days, and it's like, I don't want to get out of bed, and someone who might care about you, tell you that's not good, this isn't healthy, mm-hmm. but you're like, no, it's just a bad day, I just need a moment to do nothing. So I think the delusional part of addiction is just like, I'm just having like a rough time, and the concern you're putting on me it's making it worse. Yeah. Just give me a moment. Like, I'll figure it out. Like, this is temporary, mm-hmm. until it's not.
Right. While you were struggling with your addiction, what effects did it have on your personal life, your work life, your love life, all of those sorts of things? And how was it watching that all unravel?
That was a little tricky because I had fucked up pretty bad with my family and my life before the addiction came.
Yeah.
So it was just like, let's just throw salt on the wound and like try to numb myself.
Yeah.
At least with drugs, but with alcohol, I had a lot going on for me when I was a full-blown alcoholic for a summer. I had a good job. I was madly in love. I had just gotten my own house. I'd gotten, 3 cats, 'cause those are my kids.
Yeah.
Like, everything was kind of fulfilled. It looked on the outside as if I was doing better than ever.
Right, picture perfect.
Right, but I was just getting drunk like every day. And it was to the point where it was like, if I don't have a beer, I won't be in a good enough mood to go to work. But then I'd have 2 beers, and then I'm like, oh, now I'm in too good of a mood
to go to work. Oh no.
I wanted to call out and be like, yeah, I'm just really feeling good today, and
I just can't come in. Sorry, I'm just having a great time being drunk at the house.
Yeah.
Fuck a job.
Yeah. It became to a point where I had no shame in calling out, because I'm like, they're temporarily going to be mad at me, but I will forever be grateful if I don't have to go to work today.
Yeah.
Like, for my mental health.
Right.
So a lot of calling out from being like hungover. And then you can't tell your profession like, I'm hungover. So then you start lying. And then the lies grow. And then you can't keep up with them. So I was on thin ice with my job. And then, I would get drunk and unravel into the city and go have fun, and to the point where my lover had to come save me from a bush once in Hollywood. So there was a lot of that too.
Yeah.
One time my lover stopped me from jumping out of the car drunk because I thought it would be fun on the freeway.
Right, yeah.
Like, you just do stupid shit, and waking up in the middle of the night and having to go save somebody, you don't really see that as hurtful to them. You just see it as like,
that's my lover. That's what they're there for.
We're locked in. I need your help.
Yeah.
Like, I help you through shit. It's easy to become extremely inconsiderate when you're battling with substance abuse.
Right. As we close out today's episode on addiction, I wanted to remind viewers that recovery is possible, support is essential, and no one has to navigate addiction alone. Whether you're experiencing the addiction firsthand or you're on the receiving end of emotional burnout, help is there.
If you're struggling with addiction, you must understand that a complete, clear, and sober, beautiful life is 100% possible, and it is absolutely waiting for you. It's not easy to get there whatsoever, but every decision and word and action that you take towards it helps. And before you know it, you'll look back and realize that it was those little things that helped. And then they have to be consistent. But it's so not impossible. It's still waiting for you, and it always will wait for you.
Yeah, time is on your side.
Yeah, there's never a point where it's no return, never. For someone who is associated with someone who's battling with addiction, I think the best advice I could give is kind of recognizing when you're going down with the ship. Ultimately, you are 100% responsible for your human experience. One of the hardest things you could experience in life is knowing when to walk away from someone. It'll feel right, it'll feel wrong, but ultimately, you have to put yourself first. You absolutely have to, because when you both go down, that doesn't help anybody.
If you or anyone that you know is struggling and in need of help, you can contact the hotline below for immediate assistance. Once again, I wanted to thank Jake for using the podcast as a safe space and expressing his vulnerability and sharing his story of addiction, sobriety, and recovery. And until next time, bye!